Hello there guys, RMP792 here, and this is my friend Jake. I've mentioned him many times in the past. He's technically appeared on Let's Review, or at least his arm has, which he, for some reason, insisted on being credited as Jake's wanking arm. But anyway, we just watched Star Trek Discovery, the first 2 episodes. So this is going to be full of spoilers. So if you haven't seen Discovery yet, or you've only seen the first episode and you're avoiding spoilers for episode 2, do not watch this vlog. Because... oh, Jesus Christ. Also, I would like to point out, I have just drunk this on my own, and the only thing I've eaten today is some toast. So I'm kind of sozzled.
You had some Doritos as well.
Oh yeah, and some Doritos. So, I'm kind of drunk, you are...
Pretty drunk.
Pretty drunk, okay. So, Star Trek Discovery. I can honestly say my single greatest takeaway from this show is this would be a really good show if it wasn't for all the continuity nightmares. Specifically, if you had set this show anywhere between 50 and 100 years after the end of Voyager, and made this race that's the Klingons literally any other race, all of my problems with the show would disappear. I'm not even kidding. Your thoughts?
I thought it was good from a sci-fi TV perspective.
But for the record, you are not a massive Star Trek fan.
No.
You like Star Trek, but I'm the
TNG,
kind of...
I'm a big TNG fan.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person who basically spent half the time we were watching it bitching about continuity cock-ups. You are not.
No.
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
But... Jesus Christ. Should we take this in some kind of chronological order?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, we've got the opening scene of them basically on some planet or other.
It's never going to get
Yeah, I don't think it's named.
It was pretty.
It was a very pretty desert planet, yeah. And them basically say, oh yes, if we do this without getting noticed, we're not violating the Prime Directive.
General Order 1.
General Order 1, yeah. It is, as I said to you, General Order 1 and the Prime Directive are kind of used interchangeably in the original series. But the Prime Directive in Kirk's era is very much something that is fluid as hell. By TNG, it's become dogma. And I prefer the TNG initiative that's basically amounts to, yeah, we kind of ignored it, but we saved an entire species. I think that was kind of worth it.
Yeah, well, in which instances do they save an entire species in violation of the Prime Directive?
They do it quite a few times in Kirk's era.
In TNG.
In TNG, in TNG, Picard is really anal about it, right down to
Do they actually do
Who Watches the Watchers? I think the best example is Who Watches the Watchers, which is basically the one where they've got a post on the planet that's sort of observing the aliens, that's meant to not interfere with them at all. It's it's there for research. They're not supposed to, and it's a while since I've seen the episode, but I can't remember. But basically, one of them ends up injured because there's a Federation presence on that planet. And they basically decide, we have to fix this because, this is our cock-up. So they beam him up to the Enterprise, and they fix what's wrong with him, but their sedatives don't work as well as they think they will.
And he wakes up and goes batshit crazy.
And he wakes up and basically thinks he's in Torntopsis' heaven, and they send it back down to the planet. He's basically had a religious vision, and he starts preaching about the Picard,
right,
and stuff like that. And and Picard feels really guilty about this because basically they're worshipping him as a god. And that's a really interesting episode because the question is, how do you deal with that? And he basically ends up deciding the best thing to do is to own up to what happened, is to go down and admit, I am a person, we have more advanced technology than you, we were observing you, we didn't intend to interact with you, but this person was injured and we felt we had to interfere and save him. And he tries his best, and that episode basically ends with them almost trying to kill Picard, and he basically ends up getting wounded. And the fact that they can, Torto Plus' wound a god, proves to them that he isn't really a god.
See, now I only remember episodes of TNG where they interfere in the destiny of a planet because they're requested. Like that one where there was all that volcanic activity, and what do? They just shoot some neutrino burst into the crust and stabilize the planet somehow.
You could be right. It's a while since I've watched TNG all the way through. I certainly remember the episode where there's effectively all the asteroids heading for them, and they basically agreed to help, get rid of them. I don't remember the one you're on about, but it could well exist. I again, while since I watched TNG, but yeah, they have a very Kirk era definition of the Prime Directive, which it's Kirk era. I'm willing to go with it. But yeah, so moving on from that opening scene, where they kind of take the Prime Directive for a ride.
All they do is let some water.
Yeah, they let some water up, which could happen naturally.
That little shrimp thing sees them.
Can I just say something I quite liked? The design of the phaser rifle is clearly meant to be reminiscent of the phaser rifle from very early TOS. Insofar as you could definitely see a sort of a 3-chamber thing with a sort of extended thing going on. Thank you. It's very TNG, which I do. TNG, TOS. I am kind of drunk, for the record. It's very TOS, which I do kind of like. Then she basically walks a symbol into the ground. As I pointed out to you, you know what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
As I pointed out while watching the episode, that doesn't make sense from a continuity point, because we know that at that period in time, the symbol that later becomes the symbol of the Federation is only the symbol of the Enterprise, not the Federation as a whole, which is the kind of continuity thing that only somebody who's been watching Star Trek since they were like 5 would pick up on. So, moving on.
I've been watching Star Trek since I was 5 and I would pick up on.
Yeah, okay. Somebody who's a massive nerd would pick up on. Yeah.
But it does later become the symbol of the Federation.
It does later become the symbol of the by the.
Is that supposed to be by merit of the Enterprise and its crew? Or is that supposed to be just a retcon? Forget that it was just the symbol for the Enterprise and now it's the symbol for the Federation. Because if that's the case, then they've done the right thing. But
put it this way: the showmakers kind of intended it to be a retcon. The fans came up with a reason why it makes sense. And I'll be honest, that sums up 90% of Star Trek continuity. I.e., the showrunners meant it to be a retcon, and then the fans explained it because Star Trek fans are kind of obsessive nutters.
Apart from the instance where the fans were writing Enterprise and they explained the cranial ridges.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, the cranial ridges thing, which we will have to get into later. Let's face it, Enterprise denoted an entire 2-parter in season 4, which incidentally is really good. They denoted that to explaining the cranial ridges thing, and it actually makes sense because you haven't seen that, have you?
I've seen that.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The virus.
Yeah, it's a virus. Yeah, it's basically the Klingons are trying to create augments to give them enhanced strength and everything else. And the first stage basically ends up removing their cranial ridges, and the second stage is what gives them the strength and the speed and everything else. And they end up having to stop it in stage 1.
Klingons are already pretty strong. Do you remember that episode of TNG where Worf gets turned into like this big reptile thing? And he's
God, yes.
The ship. Why does that happen?
That's like season 6 or 7.
Everyone's reverting to their sort of...
That's because of... I think that ends up getting called Barclay syndrome because Barclay's the patient zero.
Oh, right. Barclay's always getting him in trouble.
Well, yeah, that's Barclay's job. But anyway, moving on to Discovery.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
We will get off topic. I will warn you in advance. So yes. Anywho, so
Quickly back to that. Doesn't Worf is he trying to mate with something?
I think Worf is trying to mate with Troy. Yeah, because because at that
Is
point,
there similar?
at that point they were pushing a sorry. They
Oh
were,
yeah, they're pushing
They
the
were,
romance.
yeah, there was a Worf and Troy relationship going on, which after DS9, where he ended up with Jadzia, they just kind of dropped it from the films.
Well, yeah, and then the films,
I mean,
Riker and they ended up getting married in Nemesis.
Yeah, in Nemesis, Troy and Riker ended up getting married. But anyway, back to Discovery. This will happen a lot. I warn you, we've been drinking. So they get picked up by the Shinzhou. Shinju? Yeah. My first comment when it swung down and picked them up was, well, that's a small Starfleet vessel. Because when it comes down to it, Starfleet vessels that are atmosphere capable are really, really rare and really, really small. Because Voyager has a crew of 150 to 200, I think. I would have to look it up in my copy of the manual, but yes, I'm a nerdy enough person to have a copy of that manual. But the crew of Voyager is pretty small as Starfleet vessels go, because that's what it was designed for. And it is capable of landing. For the Shinzhou to be able to come in, given the time period it's in, I would assume its crew is, 100 at most?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't see enough of the crew to actually safely determine a crew guess. So I'm guessing.
Well, there weren't many escape.
Spoilers.
There
Spoilers for the end of the two-parter. There weren't many escape pods. Yeah, we were probably 10, 15?
Yeah.
And even if you assume you can cram 2 or 3 people into each one of those, you're probably looking at 50 to 60 persons, in the escape pods. That's a very rough guess. So, yeah. So moving on from there, so they're back aboard the Shinzhou, and Michelle Yeoh, she said her character name once. She introduced herself as Captain. I liked Michelle Yeoh as the captain. I don't know about you. Yeah. I think we can agree we liked Michelle Yeoh as a captain of a Starfleet vessel. And with Michael as her first officer. This is something that bugged the crap out of us throughout the episode. We genuinely weren't 100% sure if Michael was meant to be her first name or her surname, or if we were just mishearing it.
They started calling her Michael
Burnham? Burnham? Yeah, I think Burnham sounds about right. Was it too much trouble to call her Michelle? I'll be honest, Michael to us is a male name. Now, granted, she was raised by Vulcans, and we don't know how old she was when she was adopted, so it's theoretically possible that they were just like, well, we need to give her a human name. How about Michael? Is that a gendered name? Oh, who cares?
Maybe they want to be progressive. But if they want to be progressive, you choose something that wasn't Michael.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I like her as a character. I'm genuinely curious to see where she goes as a character.
She was a surprisingly flawed character.
Yeah, she was very flawed for a Star Trek protagonist. But...
So is this series supposed to be the birth of the perfect Federation or something?
I don't
Is
know.
this supposed to be the...
As I get the implication...
Because they weren't all that philosophical in it, were they?
No. I get the impression this is meant to be the Klingon War, and we know that there was a war with the Klingons at some point prior to TOS, because Kirk mentions them having a war in the past. And then the second war gets headed off by the Organians, who basically declare, stop being children and grow the hell up. Which is the point of the episode.
Do you think that maybe the Federation, like all great nations, will be defined by its greatest war?
Goodness knows. I mean, the thing is, timeline-wise, as I mentioned to you earlier, this is effectively, supposedly, about 5 years prior to the beginning of the original series. So, timeline-wise, Spock is currently second officer of the Enterprise. He's currently science officer, serving under Number One, whose name we never did find out, who's played by Michelle Barrett, and Captain Pike. He sort of vaguely indicated his glass. Thank you very much. A bit of a splish. So Spock is currently serving
Did
at...
you just bring one bottle of wine?
I'm afraid so. Yes, I am a terrible guest.
Oh, there's whiskey up there.
Yeah, we good. Anyway, we established this last time I was here.
Ah, is that why you only brought one bottle of wine?
Pretty much. It's enough to get me drunk. I don't know about you. Anyway. Anywho. What were we talking about? Apart from the wine of my dreams, yeah.
This will be a good point for an edit.
Yeah, I literally cannot edit on my iPad when I record it.
Edit.
Hypothetical edit. Anyway,
Something to do with...
Oh yeah. We talked
She's a
about
flawed
her
character.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's a flawed character, and part of that comes from a Vulcan upbringing.
The specific upbringing, even I have issue with.
Yeah,
Because this crosses into TNG territory.
yeah. What I will say is, the principle behind the character is basically she was at a colony that was attacked by the Klingons. She was orphaned, and she was adopted by a Vulcan family. All of this is good. All of this actually could create a really interesting character. And I'll be honest, I like the character because she's trying to use logic while also being flawed by human emotions. That is actually...
We haven't seen that before.
Yeah, I know. Which I do genuinely think they could do interesting things with. Why did it have to be Sarek?
Yeah.
Of literally billions of Vulcans, why Sarek?
It just adds a load of limits to it, doesn't it?
It does, because let's be honest.
I already don't believe it. That's the thing. Nothing's happened that's really contradictory with history, but I just don't believe it based on the fact that I've never heard of it before.
Yeah. It's the same problem that I can't remember his name. The villain from Cybok. Took me a moment to remember it, but yes. Cybok from Star Trek V. I.e. the whole he was Spock's half brother, whose mother was a full Vulcan.
I don't know this.
You've forgotten Star Trek V.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. I don't blame you for blanking it from memory, but yeah.
Which one's this one?
The one with the fan God.
God.
Yeah.
Shatner.
Yeah, Shatner.
It was Shatnered all over it.
It was really Shatnered all over, yes. But yes, Cybok is basically Spock's half brother, who is a pure Vulcan with
What?
Why am I Sarek? Thank you. With Sarek as his father. He should have mentioned that before, which is why it felt unnatural. The fact that she is Spock's half brother kind of should have been, or adopted sister. Yeah. Should have been brought up. As I say, you could have mitigated all of my problems with this. I swear to God.
But also, I feel like you've done Sarek raised a half-human,
Yeah, you have.
half-Vulcan thing. You've done that conflict. You don't need to have...
And I'll be honest.
If Sarek raised both of them, wouldn't that have made him better with either of them?
You'd like to think so.
'Cause he was a pretty shit father to
He was not a good
Spock.
father to Spock. I mean, let's face it, they were still having major issues by the time you hit TNG.
And that weird... Oh, we're not up to date, are we?
Which bit?
The connection.
Oh, that bit. Yeah, we'll talk about that. But I mean, yeah, as I said before, you can mitigate basically all of my problems with this by setting it 50 years after Voyager and making this a race we'd never heard of. Make it a race that Starfleet had encountered around about the Voyager period.
And just put her in another Vulcan family.
Yeah, and make it a completely different Vulcan family. Make it a species that, I don't know, maybe got an offhand reference in TNG or DS9 or something like that. Or even just, basically say, we had an encounter with them at the point at which Voyager was running, but it wasn't significant enough to mention to the crew of Voyager because they had their own stuff to deal with.
Yeah.
That would be fine. The fact they've set it when they've set it, and they've made this species the Klingons, feels wrong. Because, I mean, as I pointed out, the fact that the ship is basically coated in dead Klingons in coffins doesn't make sense given what we know of Klingon burial rites.
Unless it's this specific cultish
unless it
faction, because it was in...
Yeah,
it was implied that they were a specific order.
It's implied that they're a specific cult, yeah. But what we previously learned about Klingons is basically when the body dies, they do the howling, and I'll freely admit, I mentioned that they should be howling, and then they started it, and you and I were like, yeah, okay, yeah, fine. Because the howling is fairly is an important Klingon aspect that they howl when a great warrior dies to effectively let the afterlife know that he's coming, and to all intents and purposes, the more
Valhalla is basically, isn't it?
Yeah. Sto-vo-kor is very Valhalla-ish. The more warriors howl, the louder it is in the afterlife, and therefore the greater the warrior comes, to all intents and purposes. So the fact that they're this sub-cult isn't a problem. It's just, why do these need to be Klingons? Is my real problem. So, moving on, we then basically get the scene.
Sorry,
fair enough. We then basically get the scenes of them on the Xinjiao, which I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, am I?
I don't know. I mean, you said Shinzao before.
Xinjiao.
Just say Shinzao.
Shinzao.
Because it reminds me of Shinzon.
Yeah. I'll freely admit that artifact they discovered reminded me a lot of the scimitar from Nemesis in terms of the way it's sort of expanded. I mentioned that to you at the time. Mm-hmm. But, yeah. Anyway. Booze is your friend on occasional ones. But
where are we up to now?
We are basically up to them being on the ship. So, what do we think of the crew of the Shinzao?
What was that guy called? He was like a Kelpian or something like that.
Doug Jones.
I
can't remember the character name. It's the actor Doug Jones.
Doug Jones and Nicolas Cage are the only two people that made an impression on me.
In case you're wondering, what are the random people on the bridge we reckon looked a lot like Nicolas Cage, a really young Nicolas Cage.
And Nicolas Cage only made an impression on me because he looked like Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, that's all he had going for him. Basically, the only people they bothered to give any character to was the captain, Michelle Yeoh, whose character name I can't remember. Michael. Still sounds weird to me because she's female.
And the cowardly...
And the cowardly alien played by Doug Jones. And Doug Jones does play a lot of heavy makeup roles.
Yeah.
Because he was Abe Sapien in the Hellboy series.
He was that thing in Pan's Labyrinth.
Yes, he was. I know he's in the most recent Del Toro film, which I haven't seen yet, where he's basically playing a fish monster who has sex with a woman.
It's basically Abe Sapien.
Yeah,
it looks very much like Abe Sapien. Yeah.
I know
Shape of Water, is that what it's called?
I can't remember.
I think it is.
I haven't seen it. I haven't really seen much stuff around it beyond the people basically saying, wait, what? Yeah. In relation to its entire premise. But he was also in Falling Skies. Yeah. Which I
An alien?
Yeah, he was an alien. I think they named it Cochise. After a sort of Native American...
That's depressing.
Yeah. Famous Native American person, because basically they couldn't pronounce his real name, so they named him Cochise for some reason.
Actually, that's weird.
And to be fair, Falling Skies kind of... The first season was potentially interesting. After that, it got very, very janky.
They named an invader.
No. He's basically they've been invaded by this alien species, and then at the end of I think it was the second series, they realised there's this second alien race who's at war with the ones who have invaded them, who are sending, to all intents and purposes, backup. So I remember the end of that season basically being a bunch of of orbital drop pods basically landing, one of them opening, and this new alien you'd never seen before step out.
And they're there to fight the other
And
alien.
they're basically there because they're at war with the aliens who have invaded Earth. And I think that effectively the local leader of them is Doug Jones.
Oh.
And I think they name him Cochise. I could be remembering wrong. Yeah.
So he's nice.
I think he's a good guy. Or correction, I think he's fighting the aliens that want to destroy the Earth or take over the Earth.
Well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and friends are nice.
Yeah. So I as I say, that show kind of went off the rails. But anyway, back to Star Trek Discovery. We're at 25 minutes, incidentally. Well,
What were you going to say? It wasn't recording now.
No, it's
break
recording.
this over your cranium.
It's recording. We're just 25 minutes in, and we're barely like 10 minutes into the first episode.
Edit.
I can't edit.
Okay.
Anyway, so moving on, further into the episode, we've got her serving as the first officer aboard the ship, and they find a thing in an asteroid field, or an accretion disk of a effectively.
It's a what?
I think it was a newly forming star. I think they implied.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the thing was an accretion disk.
No. Yeah, the accretion disk of the newly forming star. So she goes out in a spacesuit to go and look at it. I like the fact that Starfleet actually has spacesuits that don't
look
look terrible.
shuttles though.
Yeah, they probably should have sent one. This is a good point you raised. Well done. It's one of those things. Having spacesuits that aren't rubbish is good for Starfleet, but you're right. They should have sent a shuttle for that job.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to be
I'm a
charitable.
TNG fan. They always send a shuttle. In
Yeah,
TNG.
I'm going to be charitable and assume that the ship was small enough that it didn't even have a shuttle. Yeah,
No.
I don't buy it either.
Although they didn't have a shuttle on that planet, they had to be transported up, so that kind of makes sense.
Maybe. But anyway,
But I think it was just to show off.
I think it was just to show off that they had the fairly the special effects for the show are really quite good after the first couple of episodes.
Yeah, not very Star Trek
Not very Star Trek,
because
but
they're very good.
because they're
Yeah.
no, to be fair, later season DS9 and Voyager and Enterprise actually have decent special effects. I mean, they're not amazing, but they're not bad.
The special effects in TNG never get great.
No,
In the films they do, but that's a film. That's
yeah.
different.
The ones in TNG are never very good. DS9, by the time they get into full-on Dominion War and they actually have large-scale battles, there's some actually quite nice effects work.
Bothered with Deep Space Nine.
You really should. Anyway, so they discover this thing. So she goes out and takes a look at it in a spacesuit. She finds a Klingon.
Yes.
What?
Stabs it somehow.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there.
It had a.
It had
Bat'leth.
a thing that was meant to be a Bat'leth but wasn't.
And she just sort of.
She kind of shoulder punches
into
it, and
then
somehow
it stabbed itself.
that stabs him.
Yeah, that warrior.
Yeah, he was kind of a
From
terrible warrior.
Famed warrior race.
From
just stabbed
a
itself.
famed warrior race, he died like a punk.
And then she makes it back to the ship. Very quickly.
Yep. Where
And
the
then
medical officer is Jonathan
Yeah,
from
and
30
is she
Rock.
unconscious or something? Is she?
I think she's basically meant to be
She's
unconscious when she
she's
arrives.
been treated somehow, and then she brings news of the Klingons.
Yeah.
And they don't believe her because
And they
she
don't
got
believe her
starved or something.
No, to be fair, they're skeptical, but the captain is actually sensible enough to basically declare red alert. And I like that. In most Star Trek shows, if somebody comes onto the bridge ranting, oh god, we're about to be attacked by aliens, they would dismiss it. In this, they basically go, yeah, screw it, red alert. Because, again, as I said to you, declaring red alert when you don't need to, at worst, you've given your crew an unnecessary drill. At best, you've prevented, you've lessened the damage from any unsuspecting attack on your ship. So,
do you know when they want to? When Michael wanted to go out and investigate that thing,
yeah.
and that coward was like, "It's a waste of the ship's resources." What resources did he mean?
I'm
They
assuming
don't use money.
I'm assuming her and the spacesuit is about the only resources you could be
They've
talking
got
about.
like limitless energy though by now, haven't they?
TNG era kind of janky because they don't have replicators in the TNG.
Yeah, but if
in
they
the
travel
TOS
at
era.
warp, they have like limitless energy.
They certainly have warp drive, which is a matter-antimatter reactor. again, this
That
is
was
the
just
problem.
a line that expressed his cowardice. Isn't it?
I think so, because
But
as I said to you, I think his whole character arc is basically learning to be less of a coward, less of a coward, less of a coward, vaguely heroic, overly heroic. I suspect is going to be his character arc.
one of the problems is, and it's not just from a Star Trek continuity point of view, I have literally no idea what the limitations of their technology is right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Because everything seems possible,
Yeah,
and yet whenever the story requires it, certain things are impossible.
yeah. Because, I mean, eventually they get her back, and they're busy treating her in their medbay, and as I said, treated by Jonathan from 30 Rock.
Yeah.
Can't remember the actor's name, I apologise for that. Yeah, you and I both kind of noticed that.
Yeah.
But anyway. So she's being treated, and of course she staggers out in the middle of her treatment. Because...
She's like, the Klingons! It's a Klingon! Because she's got a history. We haven't mentioned her history.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned her history. Yes, the reason she's been raised by Sarek is because the colony she was living on was wiped out by Klingons, and apparently she was about the only survivor. Which, weirdly, is a reverse of Worf's backstory.
Yeah.
Because Worf's entire backstory in TNG is basically the outpost he was living on was obliterated by Romulans, and he was rescued by a Federation ship. And for whatever reason, they, rather than handing him over to the Klingons and say, yes, we rescued this orphan, please take him off our hands, they took him back to Federation space and raised him there.
Yeah, but the annoying thing about that is, every time they do one of these adoptive kid in a civilization type stories, it's always... That character always has to learn the value of being human.
Yeah.
Worf was raised by humans.
Yeah.
But he feels...
He identifies more Klingon than he does. Yeah,
and he thinks that humanity is a weakness, but...
Yeah, I sort of know what you
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Have I lost the track of what I was saying?
No, I know where you're coming from there.
Yeah.
But,
No. So the point is, every character learns that humanity is a useful attribute.
All of them learn about the general awesomeness of humanity, yeah?
Yeah. So every time one of these adoptive kids ends up in a different culture, no matter where they're from and where they end up, their journey seems to be learning the value of humanity.
Yeah.
And that seems wrong.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I feel like Worf should have been more humanized, and then he should have learned the value of embracing his Klingon culture.
Klingon heritage, yeah.
But because that doesn't fit the Star Trek vibe, where the entire purpose of Star Trek is to tell you how special you are because you're human.
Yeah.
They didn't really do that, did they?
Yeah, I sort of know what you mean. So they're in this accretion disk of a newly formed star, and a Klingon ship decloaks, and Jesus, did I have a lot to say about that. Klingons shouldn't have cloaking tech at this point in history, because Klingons get cloaking tech from Romulans after the Romulans basically don't have the production capacity to create enough ships. So they basically buy a crap ton of Klingon ships and in exchange give them cloaking technology. That is Star Trek canon, and that doesn't happen until season 3 of TOS. So about 7-8 years after this point in the timeline. So Klingons shouldn't have cloaking tech. But anyway, moving on. So this Klingon ship decloaks, looks nothing like any Klingon ship we've ever seen before. And yes, I kind of whinged about that for a while. And kind of sits there and then suddenly activates a beacon, I think they described it as.
Yeah, they lit the beacon.
They sort of lit the beacon, and Gondor was calling for aid. And they sort of sat there for a while. Here's the thing: if that beacon is based on light,
it's not, is it?
I mean, they were talking about it's X thousand lumens or whatever. That means it's based on light, which again means it would take years to get anywhere.
And then we get to the bit that annoyed me the most, which is just rooms full of holograms that.
Oh God!
Holograms that walk around a room that they're projected into, like they're in that
Yes.
room. For that to be
Why
possible,
does nobody have a view screen?
For that to be, a view screen is a lot more reliable than a flickery hologram.
Yeah.
And also, it doesn't require the person on the other end of the hologram to be an exact replica of the room that it's
Yeah.
projected into.
As
Because
a-
that Admiral, what's he called? Admiral what?
Admiral, I have no idea. Admiral, what's his face?
You didn't like his name. What was it?
I can't
Admiral.
remember what it was.
Admiral something. He beat
Brett.
Admiral Brett. Something.
Brett was his
something.
Brett was his first name, and I just remember going, the Admiral of Starfleet is named Brett.
Yeah, but he beams onto the bridge.
Yeah,
of
yeah,
The
he-
Shinzao.
The
and he's
Shinzao,
walking around the bridge like
Yeah.
like he's there.
Yeah, and as I
would
said-
require like a holodeck that
Yeah.
was exactly
As I said,
projected in the bridge of the Shinzao.
holographic technology at this point in time should not be that advanced, because we saw in DS9 there's literally an episode where they're effectively testing a new piece of holographic technology, where it's basically a sort of hexagonal octagonal ring in which the captain of the other ship basically stands and talks to you. And they freely admit that it's prototype technology at that time. The fact they've suddenly got something similar in 100 years previously, when they shouldn't have any holographic technology at all, doesn't make sense. I refer you back to my previous comment that 90% of my problems with the show go away if you said it 100, if you said it 50 to 100 years after Voyager and make the Klingons literally any other race.
Even then, it would piss me off to have a holographic admiral walking around the bridge of another ship.
It's janky, but I don't mind that if you said it after Voyager.
But for that to make sense, he'd have to be in a room that was
He'd
just
have to be in a holodeck,
purpose
yeah.
for holographically projecting the room that he was being
Yeah.
into.
As I said, again, in DS9 it's not too bad because he basically has to stand in an area that's smaller than the carpet we're currently looking at.
Yeah, but he doesn't. He walks around the entire bridge.
Yeah. So that annoyed us. After that, we basically get into the whole...
Where's the camera on that thing?
It's there.
On the left.
It's on the left, yeah. I probably should have told them this before we started recording, to be fair. But anyway, after that, we get all those Klingon ships jumping in. And once again, I comment on the fact that none of them looks like any Klingon ship we've ever seen before. Yeah, again, would it have killed you to throw a D5 battlecruiser or two in there? Because that's all Klingon ships should look like in this era. But anyway. And we get the space battle, and honestly, it wasn't that good a space battle.
Pretty crap, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they basically showed a load of Federation ships jump in, a load of Klingon ships jump in, and then most of the rest of it was done by visuals on
lights.
displays.
And consoles explode.
And consoles exploding,
Star
yeah.
Trek staple.
One of the things that we basically ended up discussing throughout the episode is that we should do effectively a sitcom or maybe a sketch series called Star Trek R&D, which is literally just the R&D department of Starfleet just doing crazy stuff. And my comment was basically there has to be an episode in which they've designed this new breed of console and it's perfect. But one of the older heads points out that it's clearly not perfect because there's nowhere to stick the bomb. Because it's not a Starfleet Starship console if it doesn't explode whenever things are going dodgy. So one of the crew members basically gets half exploded by his console, and the captain basically says, "Go down to medical, go and get yourself fixed up." And instead he goes into the brig, and he's...
Have we talked about the fact that she's in the brig?
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention the fact she's in the brig. So she basically thinks the Klingons are going to try something. So she neck pinches the captain. She clearly doesn't do a good job of it because the captain's walking around like 5 minutes later.
Yeah, mutiny.
Yeah, declaring mutiny and basically getting her locked up in the brig. But yeah, so she neck pinches the captain, Michelle Yeoh, and it's just terrible because it doesn't work properly. As I say, let's be honest, a neck pinch, the previous way we've seen it, it's... and they're out for a couple of hours at least. Here, she does it, and she's out for like 5 minutes tops. But anyway, so she's in the brig, is the first officer. And then the ship gets shot through because the Klingons decide to open fire now that they've got an actual fleet to fight.
And because of the cleverly designed safety mechanism, that energy is directed through into a console and blasts a member of the crew.
And kills a member of the crew, yeah. And the Brig force field basically ends up projecting around her rather than, which is not how Brig force fields have worked in the past. As I said previously, they've been along one specific axis, but okay. So one random crew member who was talking to her a bit gets blasted into space, and to be fair, that actually that got to both of us a little bit, didn't it? In a kind of, holy hell, I didn't expect them to do that. That guy died horribly. I mean, they didn't really show it, but he died horribly. She basically ends up doing some bullshit to leap into the corridor.
Is Nicolas Cage his replacement? Because I don't think we noticed him until then.
I don't know. No, I think Nicolas Cage was in it before it.
Oh.
The one guy who looks like Nicolas Cage. But yeah, anyway, so she basically goes up the bridge, and and her basic goal is, we need to kill their captain and destroy their hierarchy. So they fire some torpedoes at the lead Klingon ship to all intents and purposes, and they somehow really severely damage it. And then they beam over.
Yeah, why they capture that guy.
Yeah, their intention is to capture him, which does actually make sense given what we know of established Klingons, in that they basically, a Klingon who's been captured loses all his honor. Dying in glorious battle is fine. Being captured loses all your honor. Unless you basically immediately, I was captured, oh well, time to kill myself. You can basically regain your honor by killing yourself immediately.
You've skipped over the Sarek bullshit.
Oh god, that bullshit. Yeah, while she was in there, Surak, Spock's father's name?
Sarek?
Surak?
Isn't it?
Surak?
Sarek.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, Sarek basically comes into her mind and mentions that he's given her a Katra. That's not how a Katra works! This annoyed me so much. The Katra is basically the Vulcan soul. It's what they leave behind when they know they're about to die, and they want to leave behind something for posterity. So Surak's Katra in Enterprise is passed on from Vulcan to Vulcan. Spock's is passed on to McCoy, intending to take it home. To basically be, I don't know, stored or passed on to another Vulcan or whatever. And because they happen to have his body from the Genesis planet, they're able to transfer it into another body and effectively renew him and give him new life. You don't just give your Katra away to a random schmuck, even if she is your adopted daughter. So the fact she's meant to have Sarek's Katra is just not on. I'm sorry. As a Star Trek nerd, this is wrong.
Well, it's bullshit that never happened with Spock.
Yeah.
If it were going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that apparently it lets her communicate telepathically over massive distances, even though that's not how Vulcan telepathy works. We've never seen Vulcan telepathy work further away than that. It's always been a physical contact thing, or occasionally I've got a slightly dodgy feeling about this. That's it. So working across light years is bollocks. But anyway, so she and Michelle Yeoh transport over to the Klingon flagship.
Really shitty hand-to-hand combat.
With some really dodgy hand-to-hand combat. I mean, as I said to you, I saw Kingsman, The Golden Circle, literally earlier today. And that's got some amazingly good hand-to-hand choreography. And I'm not sure if it's just going from that to this has kind of desensitized me, or if it's just the hand-to-hand combat with this was terrible.
Well, it's that, and also Michelle Yeoh was like, 50?
I'm pretty sure she's north of 50, yeah.
50-something?
Yeah, but the thing is, you say she's north of 50. Ming-Na Wen is also north of 50, and her hand-to-hand combat is amazing in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, but Michelle Yeoh's not been trained.
I don't know, but whatever it was, the hand-to-hand combat in this was terrible. I mean, this wasn't even Starfleet bad, where the full extent of their martial combat is to go and to smack somebody over the neck. This was really bad. So yeah, that was pretty terrible.
Yeah,
but
that was crap.
Yeah, but Michelle Yeoh basically ends up getting badly wounded, basically killed. Yeah, and they basically end up having to beam back the first officer, Michael.
Without Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, without Michelle Yeoh,
upset.
because they can't get a lock on her without a life sign, which isn't how transporters work. They start by looking for... Okay, put it this way. By TNG era, they start by looking for a comm badge signal. In TOS era, they start with a signal from a communicator, and then if they can't find that, they work outwards, from various categories. So they should have been able to beam her back. But basically, the head Klingon has been killed, so he's obviously going to become a bit of a martyr.
Was it? Did they kill him?
She shot him, and there was definitely a kind of
Oh, I see. I just stopped paying attention.
disintegrating effect. I suspect that albino-looking Klingon is going to become the main villain.
Yeah.
Because they kind of established
He's had a
it.
difficult
Yeah.
past.
Side note, why did you do all the Klingon scenes with them speaking Klingonese? You could have done the first couple of lines in Klingonese, pan over, and have him start speaking English. And it would have been clear to the audience that he's still speaking Klingonese, but we've translated it for the audience. That would have actually let the actor, give the speech some resonance, some power. As it stands, he sounded ridiculous. I couldn't take any of those scenes seriously. I don't know
I
about
would
you.
agree with that. I stopped listening.
Yeah. You can only read the goddamn subtitles for so long before it becomes obnoxious. But
Those Klingons didn't feel like characters. They felt
no, they didn't. They,
cartoonish.
they were some dudes, basically. But yeah, so she beams back. The Shinzawas had the bejesus kicked out of it, so they get in the escape pods, and that's basically the end of the episode.
Well, she getting court-martialed.
Yeah, right at the end, where she's getting court-martialed, and I swear to God, I know it's a directorial decision to hide all the members of that panel in shadow, but it looked ridiculous.
It's two agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
It's two agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. / Kryptonian / Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's just a case of...
It's too aesthetic-y.
Yeah.
For the rest of the episode, given the episode was produced in kind of a realistic,
Yeah, everything
way.
was well lit. You could see everything.
You could have gotten away with that in an old Star Trek series before they started filming it.
Yeah, but now, no, that looked silly. Just have it be in an actual courtroom, and them, passing judgment on her, and actually let's see the actors who are giving that incredibly minor performance.
Yeah.
That was silly. And that's pretty much where the episode ended, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was
but
the
apart
cliffhanger.
from it ended with us complaining that we didn't get to see the Discovery.
Yeah,
that entire
where
episode.
was the Discovery in the
Where's
first two
Jason
parts?
Isaacs?
Yeah, Jason Isaacs, who we know is the captain of the Discovery, is listed on the opening credits for both of the first two episodes. Nowhere in this. Would it have been that difficult to list the Discovery as part of that fleet? Maybe, I don't know, have a bit where the Shinzaos taking a bit of fire and then the Discovery sweeps past them, so we get a brief look at it. Taking some fire and saving their gift.
Doing something.
Yeah, doing something, saving their bacon. So that lets us establish the Discovery as a ship that exists, while giving us a brief but not detailed look at it. And just be like, yeah, the ship is kind of cool, and it's new and swanky and better than the Shinzao. Because let's be honest, you and I basically both said from like halfway through episode 1, this ship is doomed. This ship and everybody on it is doomed. Of the characters we'd seen up to that point, Michael, Doug Jones, that was about it we could actually see getting out of the first couple of episodes alive, basically.
Yeah.
So,
how long was she sentenced for?
life?
Life?
I'm pretty sure they said life.
I mean, that's going to be resolved somehow.
I say somehow she's going to end up as the first officer of the Discovery, basically.
Because it's so obvious, it just meant nothing.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like...
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh my god, how are they going to get out of this?
Yeah, it's
Something's
like,
gonna happen.
Jason Isaacs is going to
Yeah,
march
Jason-
into the prison and
Yeah,
have
it's
her released.
Yeah, it's going to be like a... that was his phone, incidentally.
Not very popular.
Yeah, he's very, very popular. But no, it's going to end up like the beginning of Voyager, where she where Janeway plucks Tom Paris out of jail. And that's what it feels like. So, a lot of problems. I liked it.
I liked
it.
This is the thing. It was a really good opening two-parter of a sci-fi series. I didn't feel like it sat awfully well in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah.
But given that my exposure to the Star Trek universe is mainly through TNG...
No, here's the thing. As somebody who's been marinating in Star Trek for, my entire goddamn life, okay, put it this way. When we moved into the current house I'm living in with my parents, I was 7 years old when we moved into that house. My first memory is basically coming into that house for the first time, and my dad had set up the TV, and there was an episode of Star Trek on. Specifically, it was an episode of an episode of The Next Generation. It was I, Borg.
Oof.
It's a good episode. That's one of my earliest memories. That's how kind of infused in my blood Star Trek is. So, yeah, you know what I mean, though, don't you?
Yeah.
So, Star Trek is really, really a part of me, and this is a good start to a sci-fi show. It doesn't feel like Star Trek, especially not in the era they've nominally set it in. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep watching.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep watching.
Yeah, and I will see where it goes.
We should watch it together.
That would require me coming around here every week, which I'm willing to do, dude.
It's fine by me.
Yeah.
I can be available.
Yeah, if you're available.
I think one of the main problems I had with it is it wasn't philosophical enough.
Mm.
Michelle Yeoh's dead, and in the
That feels
trailer,
like,
in the trailer, doesn't she say the line, "Starfleet doesn't fire first"?
something.
And that wasn't said in that episode. Or those two episodes, was it?
Was it? I feel. I mean, there was certainly a bit where her first officer Michael wanted to basically open fire, and she was arguing that they shouldn't.
Yeah,
So
but
it
she
feels
doesn't-
like maybe
Unless I was
that,
really drunk, but I don't think she said it.
maybe that line was it. I mean, we were talking a lot
Because that was the only line in the trailer that gave me hope for the series. Because
Yeah.
it had a bit of Federation.
It's kind
je
of.
ne sais quoi.
I think ultimately my main complaint is that they should have set it after Voyager. You could have done a lot of this stuff by setting it after Voyager and just establishing a new alien race.
I think
so many of the
unless-
continuity problems could be solved by doing that, basically.
But yeah, technology, continuity and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, even the holograms on the bridge stuff, that is solved by basically setting it afterwards. Because as I say, in DS9 they had that prototype. So if you set it, 50 years later, the technology is a lot better. Though, yes, you're right. Where the hell is the view screen on this shit?
Yeah, what the...
Because you can swear on my channel for the record.
Yeah.
I'm not fussy. But yeah, why does nobody have a goddamn view screen? Seriously, where is it?
On screen?
Yeah, yeah.
The two most said words.
On screen.
On TNG.
Maximum magnification.
TNG set how long after this?
It's roughly 100 years after TOS, so 105 years.
Yeah, and by that point they decided that view screens
No.
were the way
No,
forward.
TOS, on
Wait,
screen.
what did you say? What?
It's about 5 years before TOS officially.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then TOS,
TOS
yeah.
they use the screen.
Yeah, they basically say on screen, Mr. Sulu, or on screen, Mr. Chekhov, so many times. So yeah, the view screen is an integral part of a Federation starship. Hell, there's a joke about it in Nemesis where the front half of the bridge gets blown out,
Yeah.
and he basically goes on screen. Oh no, wait, I don't have one.
Yeah.
Put it on. Yeah, they have to do it through audio only because his giant view screen's been blown up. But yeah, you're right. So anyway,
But what I was going to say was, unless I said it already and I've forgotten. but I
you
don't
could
think
well
so.
have.
Unless this series is about the birth of the Federation as we know it.
Which it's kind of not, 'cause it's too late for that. Federation's already established. That's what Enterprise was meant to be about, and only started getting towards the end.
Yeah, but if they're going to disregard technology...
Yeah, I
in
mean, the
terms of
technology's
their
that
continuity,
goddamn.
maybe
okay.
they'll disregard the philosophy of the Federation.
I don't know. I mean, they do mention the Federation at least a couple of times, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, See, I think that's our rambling.
Out of 10. I know you don't like giving
I don't like giving ratings.
Out of 10, go on.
7.
Oh, better. Which Star Trek series would you say it compares to best in terms of quality?
In terms of quality,
Yeah.
at this point, as in, compared to the other 2-part pilots,
Mm-hmm.
DS9.
You love DS9.
I love DS9.
Is
But
it any good?
Here's the thing, DS9 is not that good for the first 2 seasons, but it had the most potential from the start.
Right.
And that's what I see in the show. It's got potential. But I don't know if it's going to capitalise on it. And I freely admit, we're in the UK, so we have both episodes on Netflix. We didn't have to pay an extra subscription fee or anything like that.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah.
For people who have to do that.
Yeah, that's BS. We're not going to go into it in any detail because we didn't have to deal with that crap. I mean, let's face it, when we...
Apart from saying it's pretty fucking unfair.
It's really goddamn terrible. I mean, let's face it, when we watched it, it actually had a Netflix original series in front of it, which is actually the same thing that... Because you don't watch The Expanse, do you?
No.
I like The Expanse, and The Expanse has a Netflix original series in front of it.
But it's a sci-fi series.
Even though it's a sci-fi series, but I suspect Netflix probably put some money into it or something like that in order to effectively get the distribution rights outside the US. But yeah, if you're in the US and you're stuck buying a subscription to CBS All Access or whatever it's called, I am so sorry because that is bull.
Bootleg it. Watch it online.
Bootleg it. Somebody will have uploaded it to YouTube already. I guarantee it. You'll have like 20 minutes before it gets yanked, but go for it while it's there. Is all I can say. But yeah, overall, I liked it, but it has serious problems. I mean, we've basically been talking about the problems for like 56 minutes.
Nobody's gonna watch this.
You say that, so, yeah. This is the advantage about having 30 fans. They're quite loyal.
Yeah, I'm one of them. I'm one of them.
Yeah, I know you're one of them. So anyway, we have been talking for an hour, basically, about this. And overall, I liked it. I want to see where it goes.
We're gonna keep.
But it doesn't feel like Star Trek at the moment. Yeah.
Keep watching.
I think we are.
Join us for the new vlog series.
Oh God, are we actually going to try and do this?
Jake and Richard drunkenly watch and then recite.
I don't know.
From Star Trek Discovery.
Can you pay for my petrol? Because I can't afford to keep driving out here.
I can pay for your wine.
I'll take it. He's going to pay for my wine, and I will take that. Absolutely. So that's on camera. You can't take that back. So thank you very much for watching.
I dispute that.
We will see you next week. We're going to try.
Yeah, possibly not Mondays.
Possibly. But
I'm pretty booked up on Mondays.
yeah, I appreciate you're actually working and everything else. So we're going to try and make this a semi-regular
I've
series.
got next week off.
You've got next week off, so we can probably do next Monday.
Yeah.
Possibly Tuesday, depending on how long this takes to upload. But anyway, so...
I'll have to be drunk to do this again.
Oh, yeah, obviously. So we're going to try and make this a semi-regular series, so if you like it, comment section is there. Woo! So until then, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in future episodes.